Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. You're watching PTV World. And to recapitulate this journey of peace and brotherhood, as our title says, this is Umar Khalid. But 2 days of a very historic and important visit of the Saudi Crown Prince, His Excellency Mohammed bin Salman, to Pakistan. After a gap of 15 years, a very important leader from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia comes, visits Pakistan. In fact, he wants to visit different countries, but decides to visit Pakistan first of all. Why? Because Pakistan is the country that Saudi Arabia feels it is very close to in the Muslim world. Saudi Arabia and Pakistan have had a relationship that dates even before the independence of Pakistan, and that has only strengthened with the decades after the independence of Pakistan, whether it be King Faisal, who came in 1974, the other crown king who came later on. The different names, for example, Lalpur, that is named Faisalabad, to revere King Faisal. Also Faisal Mosque, we've got the Shahrahe Faisal as well in his name. We revere this birthplace of Islam, that is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The people of Pakistan love Saudi Arabia, they love the people of Saudi Arabia, and both countries have had a strategic relationship that has only developed and become stronger over the decades. And with this visit of the Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, His Highness Mohammed bin Salman, who just moments ago is about to leave Pakistan and was bid farewell by Prime Minister Imran Khan, by the Chief of the Army Staff, by the cabinet members as well. This visit is going to further strengthen, further cement, further foster those ties between the two nations, two brotherly nations, two nations who have a certain vision, especially in the context of our current Prime Minister, Mr. Imran Khan, and the Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, who want to diversify the economy of their respective countries and want to make their countries stronger in the times to come. And it is for this very reason that both countries want to work together. The Crown Prince here last night said something very sweet. He said that for him, he feels that he is Pakistan's ambassador in Saudi Arabia. You could see from the very first moment that he came out of his airplane that there was a very warm aura that was emanating from him and his delegation, and that was reverberated by the Pakistani leadership as well. And whenever something happened, both leaders were smiles, both leaders had a very cordial chit-chat, also one-on-one meetings. We'll discuss that more and more, but just to kind of summarize it all, it has only strengthened the relationship between these two countries. And as we bid farewell to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia and he embarks on visiting other countries in the region, we leave with a smile, because the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia has left us with that aura, with that feeling that this new chapter of the relationship between the two countries is only going to get better and better, and that he thinks of himself as a man who speaks, who talks, who thinks not only for the people of his kingdom but also for the people of Pakistan. To talk more about the whole gamut of relationship between these two brotherly nations, in this first part of the transmission, we've been joined by two important guests. Let me introduce them to you one by one. On my very right is Dr. Gulfaraz Ahmed. You're an energy economist and a senior economist at that. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, to have joined us.
Welcome.
Next to him is Mr. Amir Zafar Durrani. You're a senior economist as well. Thank you very much, Amir Saab. It's a pleasure to have you here on the show. And it's my first interaction with you, so let's see how that goes. Dr. Gulfaraz Ahmed Saab, you've seen the whole gamut of these 2 days. It was a very, for me, not only as an anchor but also as a layman, as a Pakistani, I felt so proud of these 2 days, the way both leaders, the way both delegations interacted, the kind of press conferences that were given, whether it be by the two leaders, the banquet, the casual talk that was done yesterday. You could only see the warmth that emanated. What did you feel yourself, sir, as an economist and as a Pakistani? What were your feelings?
No, I certainly feel that this was a very momentous, very historical visit. There was no doubt that Saudi Arabia has been our friend in need, and Pakistan has made repeated commitment to the security of Haramain Sharif. And we've been very close, militarily particularly. As far as the economic interaction is concerned, that remained limited. And Saudi Arabia had been more looking towards the West as far as its investment is concerned. There has been now a global change behind the time of this particular visit. One is that the Crown Prince is a visionary person. He's in a hurry to reform Saudi Arabia.
Vision 2030, sir.
Yes, in a hurry to reform Saudi Arabia on modern economic lines. Although Saudi Arabia can continue to produce the present level of oil for well over 100 years, but they know that given 2040, 2050, oil would not be used for combustion. And therefore, it may be used only as a raw material, and therefore the demand for oil will go down. And therefore, the Crown Prince wants to diversify the economy of Saudi Arabia away from oil. And he's setting directions.
And you talked of 2050. I mean, just while he was leaving, when he addressed the media just before he left Pakistan, the Crown Prince said that he sees Pakistan being one of the strongest economies of the region by that time.
We're coming to that point. So one is the major shift that would come about in the oil-related economy in coming decades, and he's seeing that well in advance, and he wants to correct the direction so that they can develop sound economy minus oil. Second point is that they have, for their investments in the West, there's no doubt that the West being preponderant sort of powers, whenever there is something that is not to their liking, then the investment of Middle Eastern countries is in a jeopardy. Take the case of Iran, for example. Similarly, the heavy investment that Saudi Arabia has in America, they need to be concerned how easily can they take it out, and therefore they are looking, while they're diversifying economy away from oil, they are looking to the rest of the world, particularly to the East. And when you look towards East, there's no doubt that one of the countries that stands out, the second largest economy of the world, is China. But if it may be wishful for me to say that don't look at Pakistan of today. If an ordinary country would not have survived last 20 years of rigors that Pakistan has gone through, Pakistan has been in flames. And therefore, there is some resilience to the people of Pakistan, and they have at least been able to firefight and have some breather and look beyond. And therefore, I 100% endorse the words spoken by the Crown Prince that Pakistan is going to be a very important country. Important we
Economy.
are. Yes, important we are. Now we have to grow economically. And I think the other thing is that the little bit of aspersion which is being cast in the West on the Crown Prince himself, therefore he really wants to be at home with the people where he's very comfortable, and who
But
those
you
who
saw
understand.
the body language of the Crown Prince. It was
those,
very
those
comfortable.
those who understand, and our hearts throb like his heart. Therefore, there is that factor as well. But then looking towards Pakistan, you know, they now needing to diversify the economy, needing to shift away from the West in a gradual manner, they do see Pakistan upcoming as a market for investment. Because now we have a people-centered government. They talk straight, they are transparent, and they are driven by the economic development of the country. Therefore, these opportunities in Pakistan, the new government in Pakistan, with whom, for example, if the Prime Minister of Pakistan talks to the Crown Prince, then the Crown Prince is already assured that he's talking about the country's interest. He's not going to talk about any personal interest. Those are the other things which have emboldened them to come to Pakistan in a big way. And you've seen that $20 billion investment, which I feel this is
Which
not
he says is just the first phase.
first phase. And he said it will grow by months. The point is that MOUs are signed. Sometimes the circumstances behind those MOUs change, and therefore MOUs never see light of the day.
But that is why there's a security cooperation council that has been made.
But creating a council headed by the Crown Prince and Prime Minister, nobody is going to now take it easy.
Exactly.
They'll move faster than fast. So those are some of the other things. And the way the visit came about, these were 2 short days. Every moment was very gracefully conducted by Pakistan, where people's heart came out.
Exactly.
And the Crown Prince could see for himself, it's not a staged reception.
It was genuine. The warmth was genuine.
It came from heart. And in fact, he also felt it in his heart. You know, for a Crown Prince who's likely to remain at the helm of Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for more than half a century, he is a very, very important person. You said that we relate to Saudi Arabia. We relate so strongly to Saudi Arabia. And then having a person who would matter for next 50 years or plus, it was a very
Exactly, and
important
when he
occasion.
decides to go abroad and visit different countries, the first country he decides to go to is Pakistan. Amir Zafar Durrani
The last point. When the Prime Minister tweeted this thing, how, you know, kind of the Crown Prince to say they considered me as Pakistan's ambassador in
Saudi
Kingdom
Arabia.
of Saudi Arabia. I think he could not bring out his heart more openly than this statement. So he's won our hearts.
That is so true. Emotional moments, nevertheless, Amir Zafar Durrani Sahab, during this important visit of the Saudi Crown Prince to Pakistan. A lot of important MOUs were signed between both countries. A lot of important things were discussed as far as the future of the relationship between both countries is concerned. And even these MOUs and the agreements that have been signed between the two countries, and more MOUs are to follow, as our Foreign Minister said during the briefing today. This is only the beginning of a new chapter. What do you have to say on that? Do you feel there is real genuineness in all of the MOUs that have been signed, and they are really going to be followed up because of the formation of the Supreme Coordination Council? What is your take as an economist, seeing, overviewing this visit?
Well, thank you very much. I think that overall, if you look at the spirit of the visit, I have to agree with Dr. Saab that it was very positive. It came from the heart. I think both gestures from both sides were very genuine. I think that if you realistically ask me that, you know, how is this going to pan out, I'm going to talk a little bit about the future, because we've heard what has already happened. And I think that, you know, there are 3 or 4 factors which we need to bear in mind. The first is what Dr. Saab has already mentioned, the reconsolidation of Saudi wealth elsewhere, because I think that's very important for them to diversify where they hold their wealth. And mind you, the second factor, which is even more important, is since Mohammed bin Salman has been at the helm, he has tried to consolidate the wealth of the state as different from the wealth of the individual princes, which you saw the episode where, you know, he has tried to say, you cannot cheat Saudi Arabia. It's your state. You have to treat it like a country, treat it like a modern nation state. So I think that brings Saudi Arabia. Third thing, the world's largest oil-producing country is going out and privatizing Aramco, its largest oil-producing entity. And you've heard about the $1 trillion wealth fund that Mohammed bin Salman was trying to create. I think that these are 3 events, plus I think the 4th seminal event, which is, I'm kind of shaping the previous, was the conference that they had about the creation of the new city and the Vision 2030, which was
2 new cities, sir, not 1.
Well, I mean the one on the Red Sea, okay, 2 new cities. But at the end of the day, I think which was this conference a little overshadowed by the events as they happened. We all know about them. So I think his coming out here and the formation of this council, the personal relationship with Imran Khan, which is you know, quite evident. I think that it is only for us to destroy this investment. And I say that very carefully because I think that our record with the way we have dealt with such large investments is not very much on the, how should I say, it's not very well performing, to put it mildly. I was going to use a harsher word.
But should we say that the past was the past and we need to look at the future and the
Exactly.
present?
So that's what I'm saying that, but however, this from our side is the first point, is that it comes at a time when Pakistan is on an upbeat tick, if I may use that word. It is basically now that Pakistan is coming out of, if I can say this very rightly, I mean, my kids feel joyous, right? Because there is this feeling that they have true people's representation. That's not to belittle the governments before, but genuinely people feel that. Now, if the spirit permeates through the right circles in the bureaucracy of Pakistan and they support the Prime Minister in implementing this, I think we have the dawn of a new era. And as you can see, the 3 countries that he's doing henceforth, right? He goes from here to India, again, probably going to be the 3rd largest economy in the world very soon. China, which already is considered at par in PPP with the United States of America. So it's a very measured, calculated trip. But it also provides one other thing, which I don't know if people have been mentioning, because I'm watching these transmissions. For 2 days, we are out of CPEC. Have you noticed this? Nobody has mentioned CPEC.
No,
so,
but during the discussions that were held between both leaders, CPEC has been mentioned. Saudi interest in CPEC is there. It's present.
Yeah. But I think that the urgency of the Saudi investment, I think, will bring to bear a lot many different things. Saudis, for whatever it's worth, are not the same as dealing with the Chinese. Let's call agreements, contract agreements, the way MOUs are treated. China has a deep understanding of kind of steady, deep, take your time approach to the Saudis, it appears this time around, are kind of in a rush. And they're in a rush because the region is changing. And the region is changing. I saw today a request from Razak Dawood earlier when I was in the meetings, saying that he would appreciate if the sanctions on some of the GCC countries against Pakistan are lifted in terms of employment. I think the GCC continuum, hopefully the Yemen war will settle down a little bit differently. And I think just a very quick mention on this. We do have economic relationships, which I think that some of the younger people like yourself have forgotten. When I grew up and I was becoming a civil engineer in the early 80s, 83 to be precise, one of our largest firms, EAC Lahore, they were actually part of the EPC construction conglomerate that rebuilt the entire Medina Mosque. The redoing of the Makkah Haram Sharif. So Pakistani firms have always been there, but always in a second tier, just like the other GCC countries, to the European and the American firms. So I think now you will see...
Are we moving upwards towards first year now?
I hope so. That's my hope.
All right. Now, when we talk about first-year relationship and the change of that gamut of relationship between Pakistan and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, you talked about the past as well, that we've been involved. And today as well, the Foreign Minister, the State Minister for Foreign Affairs, Adil Al-Jubair, also mentioned that Pakistan has been part of the development of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. He talked about the doctors, the engineers, the educationists, the skilled, the non-skilled workers that have been part of the whole process in Saudi Arabia and still are. And he said that in the times to come, we'll be needing their presence even more. The two of you, I'll ask this question for the two of you, starting from you, Dr. Gulfraz Saab. How much of a need do you feel is there from the Pakistani side to establish proper skilled forces that will help Saudi Arabia, also China with the CPEC? Do we need specialized institutions in your point of view, or do you feel that those institutions are there and they only need to be streamlined?
It's a very interesting question, very important question also in the context of the history of development of Persian Gulf countries, UAE, Qatar, Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. Let's say if looking the last about 40 years or so, there is no doubt that there was a point in time when Pakistani workforce played a very important role in physically building these countries, physical infrastructure. In fact, I wrote an article on that, the real builders of UAE, for example. I happened to be there in very early 70s. And that was the time when they'd just begun to physically develop the infrastructure.
Fine.
And I noticed that there were people from different countries concentrating on different jobs. Like, for example, some countries from India, countries like India, they would concentrate more on sales persons. As far as Yemen, mostly on low-grade office works. As far as Iranians, mostly in trading, small shop, big shop. But Pakistani labor was one which physically worked with pick and shovel and built the infrastructure. And the real builders of UAE were actually Pakistanis, because during the afternoon, very high temperature, nobody could stand to be outside their work.
But Dr. Gulfaz,
so they worked.
There's also that thing of the cultural similarities and the social similarities between both countries. That is why not only the skilled or unskilled workers, but also doctors and engineers who have gone to Saudi Arabia, because they understand each other's mindset.
So during that time, I fortunately got an opportunity to get some of the Pakistani labor, their passports and official status, and they started getting better salary.
All right.
Then we started seeing a change. Whereas our people continue to go and work very hard in Shalwar Kameez, we started seeing people from Sri Lanka, from Philippines, come in semi-uniform condition, carrying all tools on them and appearing to be a trained workforce.
All right.
And slowly and gradually they replaced our Shalwar Kameez, good technicians, but seemingly not looking to be an organized workforce. So now the tables have changed. We have mostly the foreign craftsmen who are taking good jobs in these countries. You hit the nail by saying, do we need institutions? Yesterday, we need to actually rework on polishing the skills and also giving them the appearance of organized workforce. For example, instead of sending them individually, send them in groups with the group organization and taking responsibility for some of their problems while they are there as groups. So I think we can reclaim our position in these countries in the technical manpower.
By having the right institutions here as well. Durrani Sahib, you wanted to add something. You were a bit impatient. I could see that.
I'm a little impatient because I want to change the story on this, right? We are in the 21st century, Dr. Sahib. I think this whole story of, say, catering to what we can do through remittances is bound to, I think it's bound to come to an end, but I think it should come to an end because the world is...
But it's the largest country that...
I totally agree with you, but I think that let's go to, are we going to stick with those few billions of remittances or are we going to create those billions in Pakistan? So I think your question, the way I understood it is, do we need new institutions to absorb the new, the economic package that is being offered?
Exactly.
I think if I take it in that, I think the answer is that, we need to start really understanding 3 or 4 key things again. I'm sorry I keep these things on a list so as to my own memory. But the first foremost thing is let these deals be transparent. I mean, the feeling I got today was that, hey, it's Imran Khan there, so Amir, please think that things are going to be better. But, a lot of the usual suspects are hanging around the sort of corridors of power. And I think our Prime Minister needs to be very wary of that. The second thing, once these transparent deals are done, the tech services should go this time to Pakistan. They should not be outsourced to the other parts of the world. I mean, Dr. Saab, it's a very good point. So let me just finish. So tech services go to Pakistan. The third thing is we should, by all means, cut this condition of 100% ownership and investment in Pakistan. This is really counterproductive for Pakistan because before we know tomorrow, all our golden assets are going to be in the hands of other people. I'm not being kind of a hawk on this or anything, but I mean, I think that this is a real fundamental fear. No country, I mean, you should be allowed to do that. I mean, not even in a special economic, well, maybe in a special economic zone. The fourth thing is we've got to guard our currency very, very carefully. And I think that currency guard for us becomes kind of the hubbing. We can expand on that a bit later. But how do we put all of this together? Do we need new institutions? The answer is no. We have more than ample institutions. In fact, if anything, we need fewer institutions.
All right.
Number two, the provinces need to be brought in line. The provinces have single-handedly caused more harm, starting with Balochistan. Look at Rekodik, look at Karki in Karachi. If you look at the amounts of money that are being claimed for us to pay back, we'd be in a serious debt trap just because of the provinces and this whole thing about the rights of provinces. Look, the federation has to grow together. We are all part of one hand, one body, and this has to be taken seriously. The reason I say this is that a very core part of this investment is going to be the deprived provinces, and I hope that it is. It's going to be Balochistan, it's going to be Sindh, and it's going to be parts of KP, and it's going to be Gilgit-Baltistan. Now, be very careful again. The new institutional, I think, mandate is the earlier we develop GB, the better, because if GB gets more investment from this, we have to also be very careful when we get investment. You know, we should always say that everything comes with a price, right? There's no free lunch, there is no free party in this world. So there was a huge interest expressed in GB. Now, GB is, as you know, a contested area. Right? So in other words, we need to consolidate our government. And I mean, let me be provocative on TV. The earlier we consolidate our government so that forget when Kashmir gets resolved, get that consolidated, because if you bring in investment there and that investment overshadows and changes the hearts and minds of the people, and then tomorrow Saudi Arabia and India are better friends in the region than us, God forbid, you know, we have to look at our national interest. And I mean, these are, I mean, I just did a quick summary. I'm sorry, it encompassed a lot of things, but I think we have to be very,
But I think, Rani sir, we are looking at our national interest, especially in the current context. And in the last few months, we can only see positivity emanating from different sectors. It's a tough time. I can understand that.
Yeah.
Economically, there are a lot of loopholes, a lot of lacunas that need to be properly filled, properly looked at. Which brings me to another very interesting thing that has been talked about in the last few months and also during this visit. Ease of doing business.
Yep.
That has been said by, you were talking about Razak Daud Sahab. He said this today in the Pak Saudi Business Conference. So, ease of doing business.
Yeah.
How much has this ease of doing business helped Pakistan? It will help Pakistan.
Can help Pakistan.
And can help Pakistan, exactly.
Yes, yes.
If I can quickly, Dr. with your permission, just answer
please.
that very quickly.
I'd like to add something on.
Yeah, the first thing is, and again, from a career in the World Bank, as I retired, I have to tell you, we need to forget about the World Bank's Doing Business Index. And I'll tell you why. Because it gives you certain boxes to tick. Whether something has happened in those boxes or not, we don't know, right? And the reporting is done by ourselves by creating a shell, what we call like a single window. So I think this, you've just hit the sort of the hardest problem on that, yeah? I think ease of doing business, if you just, tomorrow I'm actually coordinating, I'm moderating kind of what you're doing now.
Okay.
A 4-hour session with the ministers, including the BOI minister, chairman, etc.
Okay.
On the simple fact is, what do we really mean by a single window? So I think that for ease of doing business, I think we have to let government step out of the way, please.
All right.
And secondly, let the federation and the provinces get some harmony. Rather than simply, it is rather unfortunate that constitutionally the first emergency of Pakistan was declared because we wanted to build, we need 8,000 acres of land in Karachi by the Governor General Quaid-e-Azam Muhammad Ali Jinnah. And we declared an emergency to get that land because the then Constituent Assembly of Sindh refused to give that land to the federation for building its capital and place. Yeah. So going back in history, I think this is very important now. One lesson we have to learn: we are positive. We have a leader that everybody loves. I don't think a Sindhi, Balochi, KP, GB guy, I've worked in Chitral. Believe me, this is the first time that no one looks upon
Global level,
him.
global trust, that is another thing.
No, global is one thing, but local trust, my dear friend, is more important. So global trust, I think Dr. Saab put it very nicely that, they look across and they say, this is a man we can do business with.
Exactly.
Everything he's done is about achieving things for his country, right? So I think competitiveness, these two things, please keep in mind. One, less government. Two, province and federation aligned. Then we start laying the foundations of competitiveness.
What do you have to add to that?
When we're talking about ease of doing business, the one particular model which comes to my mind is that of Singapore.
All right.
We all know Singapore is a city-state. But their vision, they want to become the contending financial capital of the world, contending with New York, contending with London. And they're well on their way to becoming. So what in essence they did, they deployed enormous amount of intellectual capital in the form of creating ease of doing business, the regulation. Their civil servants were seized with finding ways to make it easier for anyone to invest and also to make money and take money out. So once they deployed enormous intellectual capital through ease of doing business environment, the financial capital flew in from all over the world.
Increased.
And today you see that country assumes a place. There is hardly any company in the world important enough which does not have presence there.
True.
So that is one model. Second is South Korea. Incidentally, at this point in time, the research money on IT as a percentage of GDP highest is South Korea. And when South Korea
And
was developed,
what a beautiful model South Korea.
when you talk about
development.
South
Some would
Korea,
say Dr. Mehboob has something to do with it.
Yes.
But the point is that we also have the legacy that when we were doing 5 years planning, South Korea took one of our 5 years
Yes,
plan
it did.
and kicked off. Whereas we were not action oriented, they kicked off it. But in their case, most of they used to have brain drain. They used to talk about the bright, educated people staying outside and helping build the rest of the world. But as South Korea started developing and created the need, all those South Koreans working all over the world, they swarmed back with much greater awareness and also exposure, and having been a little bit well off for a while, they dedicated to develop the country. My hope and reading is that this is going to happen in Pakistan as well. The moment Pakistanis who work 10, 20, 15, 30 years abroad, who have actually fulfilled some aspects of their life's achievements, they want to now work for the benefit of Pakistan and for the uplift of Pakistan.
I think that's very important to work for the benefit and uplifting of Pakistan.
You have a factor. I want to tell you a thing. You go to, I spent 8 years in Silicon Valley. I had been breathing for 8 years. I know that some of the people from Pakistan are regarded as cream of the crop there. So I am very confident, very positive that the moment the direction is straight, and we are seeing that directions are straight by people who mean to do business for the benefit of the people, for the country. There are no other angles to it. Those essential things are becoming visible. But I very much agree with Amar that our federal complexion is such that the federal harmony, why did I take out time over 7, 8 years and became member of the National Finance Commission, representing Balochistan, and then eventually was able to bring an award, Balochistan-centered award, 7th National Finance Award, because I knew there was so much of sense of deprivation that you could never keep the aspirations of those people along when you look towards the federal future, unless you started taking care of some of the things which should have been done. So I'm very conscious of the fact that the federal harmony, you have institutions, and if there are different parties having different governments in different provinces, that is a strength. That's not a weakness, that's diversity. We just need to develop a thinking and feeling that diversity in political sense among the federating units, it is a strength and we should respect. But sometimes federating units do come in the way of federal visualizations and jumps.
All right.
And the exploitation of natural resources is one area.
All right. All right.
In that, I may just say that when I, as a federal secretary in this very ministry, I realized that we would not be able to make a good headway in exploiting our mineral resources because of this federal lack of harmony. So I studied that there was one federation which was pretty close to our model, Australia, and I requested the Australian government, and they sent a very strong team of 7, 8 experts who were to live in Pakistan 3-4 months, study the provincial problems, study the federal programs, and try to develop a set of laws and regulations that we would adopt and therefore overcome some of these federal difficulties in exploiting natural resources. But once the study was coming to close, then the military government, Musharraf government took over, and after that it fell through cracks. I left as a secretary. But there is a need to actually crease out the differential visualization about the natural resource within various segments or with the various components of the federation in a federal manner.
All right. Dr. Saab has explained in quite detail through his experience about the issues that are there and how we can work around them, whether it be strength and diversity or federal harmony, action-oriented measures that need to be taken. Speaking of action-oriented measures, today, let's come back to that Pak Saudi Business Conference. You were there as well. That's why I want to talk to you about that, Amir Zafar Durrani Saab. The BOI secretary talked about reforms for Saudi businesses. He talked about various machinery that will be exempted from import duty for Saudi Arabia, tax reforms that will be brought in, and tax holidays to be provided to sectors of Saudi investment. How do measures such as that in our current setup help improve the economy of Pakistan when a second country such as the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia brings in investment?
Okay, I think that what he said on the slides, and if you were there, I was there, we looked at those slides. Those were measures I think which were targeted to generally all investors. They were being highlighted to the Saudi investor because woe be to a country who basically starts giving preference to a particular investor, because then it kills its own investor, right? I mean, what has somebody like our own, I'm again not naming names, but our own investors who want to invest in Pakistani economy, why should they not get all this? And you know, let's be very wary of the fact that with the Saudis walking in, we need to remember that there was a bit of a whiplash, sort of a backlash, depending on who you were, against the Chinese when CPEC was being bought in, right? Because the Pakistani businesses, me included, I mean, we went and said, you know, come on, there's not a single Pakistani subcontractor employed. Sahiwal was put up. Before that, Qadirabad was put up, which was the solar plant. You know, so there was this like a haste of being nice to the Chinese. We know the Chinese are all our friends, but I think the investment, when you open it up, please open it up along the same lines for everybody, because that's all in line with what you just asked earlier.
All right.
The ease of doing business. Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, when we talk of business also, even the Saudi Minister of State for Foreign Affairs talked about the construction of the refinery in Gwadar. He talked about the other sectors as well where they're going to invest. And he said it's not charity, it is investment. Now, that is also a very important point that I took forward, because it is interesting to note that when a country invests, it also brings that positivity not only to the people of the country where the investment is being made, but also to the countries around. It sends that image. See, a country like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is investing. It's not giving the money. It's investing, just like China is investing in the.
So I think the package. Again. So again, a very big simile with CPEC from a few years back. I think it should not be. It's not a dole out. It's really money to be returned. They seek returns. It's money that seeks return. And yes, I think you've just put it very, very aptly that it is money that seeks returns, but sends a signal to the markets in the region that yes, Pakistan is open for business.
Exactly.
So that, I think, is what we should take away from this.
Exactly. So, Dr. Gulfraz Ahmed, Amir Zafar Durrani, I'm sorry we're short of time. We could have talked a little bit more. But Pakistan, ladies and gentlemen, as we've kind of recapitulated through this hour, is open for business. It's evident through the visit of the Crown Prince, His Excellency Mohammed bin Salman, and the various MOUs that have been signed, and the various measures that are going to be taken by the Saudi businesses to invest in Pakistan. And as the Saudi Crown Prince very ably said, this is just the first phase. $20 billion of investment in Pakistan is not a small thing, and it will only move forward with days to come, and we will see, inshallah, in the couple of months and years that will follow. And I think Amir Sahab will be there, Dr. Gulfraz will be there. Inshallah, we will come back in a couple of months to talk about how these are developing and how these are going to reap benefits for the people of Pakistan and bring together peoples of the two countries. Allah Hafiz for now. We're going to take a short break. It's a news break, and then we'll move on with the second part of this discussion, recapitulation, summary of what this visit of the Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia means for economy, for political ties, for foreign relations, and for the brotherly relations between the two countries. Allah Hafiz for now, and thank you very much to both of you gentlemen.